Hello and welcome to the Edexcel March 2012 Level 2 test paper. I would strongly recommend for anyone doing this that you first download a copy of the paper and print it off, and also get the data files on your computer. This will allow you to work alongside the video and see what's going on. For my students, this is how you access the files. We've gone onto the Doncaster College website, gone through the student links, and we've gone to Blackboard. When you get onto the Blackboard site, you enter your username and password. They're the same username and password that you use to access the PCs at the college. You then want to go into the Functional Skills ICT course. We go onto Past Papers. We scroll down to the correct paper, which is the Edexcel Level 2 March 2012. If we click on the top link, it will take us to the question paper, which can also be found on Edexcel's own Past Papers site. Okay, I'm going to leave this open for the duration of this test so you can see what the questions are as we're going through them. And we also want the data files in order to complete the test. Without the data files, we can't complete what the questions are asking. So, once we've got the data files, all we're going to do is we're going to make sure that they're safe and on the desktop. Remember, if the file is still zipped, so you could just extract it rather than copy and pasting like I've done. But if the file is still zipped, then there are a number of operations that you won't be able to do while they are in the zip file. So by having them in an open file, uncompressed on your desktop, it's going to make life a lot easier. It's also worth noting, although I'm keeping this open, if you were actually taking a test, you would have to turn off the internet once you'd finished part A or after 15 minutes. There is a time limit on how long you can stay on the internet. Although I'm leaving this open, you will notice that once I've completed task A or section A, I will close all other windows on the internet. Okay? It is going to be easy if you have printed the sheet off so that you can follow what I'm doing as I'm doing it. Okay? The first thing that we need to do is we need to do the section A, task 1. Task 1 is section A, task 2, 3, 4 and 5 are all part of section B. In task 1, what you'll be asked to do, and this is the same for almost all papers, you'll be asked to access the internet, find some information and record it into a Word document. This is the Word document you'll be using for March, which is the Responses March 12 L2 document. It has a copy of the questions in here. They're not always word for word exactly the same as what is on the question paper, so it's a good idea to make sure you are answering the question on the question paper rather than the question in the Word document. Likely the Word document will be a summary of what's on the question paper, but just to be sure you're getting exactly what you need, make sure you've read the question paper. What I'm doing here is I'm saving a copy of the file into a folder. This is the folder where I'm going to put all my finished work. So here I've got two folders. I've got the folder in which the data files were originally in, and I've got a second folder in which I'm going to save all my finished work. This keeps them separate and prevents me from getting confused. So the first thing that we're going to do, which is generally consistent with most of the tests, is we need to paste a screenshot showing that we know how to do an internet search. So it's asking you to paste a screenshot of the internet search that you're going to do to find the 200 milliliter organic shampoo. So first of all, I need to learn to type. So I'm using the Google search engine. It doesn't matter which search engine you're using. What is important is that when you get your screenshot, you make sure the name of the search engine is visible in the screenshot, as well as the search criteria that you entered. Okay, so I've taken a screenshot of the shopping page, but it's still part of the search engine. You can still see the Google, you can still see the results. It's still all part of the search engine. Okay, so now the screenshot's in there, that's all you really need to do. It needs to be visible. You need to be able to make out the search results. You need to be able to make out what the search engine's name is. I am going to crop it a little bit to make it more visible so that they can see that a little bit more clearly. If you are going to crop it as well, do be careful. Make sure you don't accidentally crop out the name of the search engine, for example. That is part of the marking criteria. They do expect to be able to see it. So you don't need to crop your screenshot. If you are going to, make sure you include your search criteria, the name of the search engine, and search results. So it doesn't matter which answer you pick, any will do as long as it's a 200ml organic shampoo. So I'm just taking the first one on the list. I'm going to the website. Okay, we can see all the options. There we have it, website with the shampoo and the price. The advantage of this is in this particular paper, they ask you for one selling point of the shampoo. By going to the actual website where they're selling the shampoo, they're obviously going to tell you something good about it. They're trying to sell you the product. So rather than having to think of something myself or make something up from the description, I can just copy out their selling point and paste it straight into the paper. It saves me typing. I'm going to paste it as text only, so I'm not going to keep my original formatting. Okay, and then I just put that into the box, and there we have it. We've got one selling point, one reason for a customer to buy it. So the next thing it's asked us to do is to find a picture of a person shampooing their hair. You'll often be asked for images, and often you'll be asked to associate it with the website that you found the image. This is to show that you can reference stuff that you found on the internet. Just because something is on the internet, it doesn't mean that it's free to use. The person who owns the image still has the rights to the image. Okay, there are certain conditions, certain copyright reasons why you can use images and so on and so forth. For example, I'm using this for an educational reason. If the person said they didn't want me using their images, I would still have to take them off. You know, they still own the image. But I'm not doing this for profit. I'm not doing it to help anyone, hurt anyone, or for my own personal gain. So I've put the name of the website, I've put the image on. That image is now referenced in. So you can see the next page is about task 5. Task 5 is actually at the end of the test, so we don't want to do that yet. So I'm going to put in my name, my candidate number and centre number. For candidate number and centre number, I'm just going to use 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. Now your candidate number and centre number will be given to you when you go into the test. You'll be given a piece of paper with your name, the candidate number, and you'll be told the centre number as well. You can enter those in. Bear in mind they should be on every piece of paper that you finish with. Every document you produce should have those items on it, and we'll go over that again and again because it is important. So you can see I've closed all the rest of the internet pages down. All I've got left open is the PDF document. This is still open in an internet window, and you would not be allowed to do this during the test. I've just left this here so that we can see it. I won't be accessing the internet anymore. So in task 2, this is the Excel file. Typically there will be an Excel file in task 2. It's for the Edexcel test, I don't think I've seen anything other than an Excel file at this stage. What you might have to do in this Excel file will vary quite dramatically depending on exactly what they've asked for. Or there are certain consistencies, so we can stick with those and focus on those. First thing we'll have to do is we'll always have to put our name, candidate number and centre number into the footer of the document. You can go through the Insert tab, select Header and Footer, and you can click on the footer, and I'm going to put my name at the left, candidate number, then centre number. As long as they're all in there, that's the important thing. That's what you need to focus on. It's also worth noting that each worksheet, each tab at the bottom left, has its own footer. So when you produce charts, for example, or if there's more than one sheet, you should put your name, candidate number and centre number into all of those sheets. What I did was I went into view and I went into normal to come out of that view where you can see the header and the footer. Although the header and footer have disappeared, they are still there, but it's easier to work in the normal view. There are other ways to get into it. For example, in the bottom right hand corner you can simply click on the option to the left, and that is the normal view. So now I'm putting in a title like it's asked for. I'm going to merge and center that across the entire table. It will often ask you to merge and center tables. If it doesn't, if it just says to format it clearly and there's already a title there, I would strongly recommend you merge and center it across the entire table. Format the sheet so it's clear and easy to read. A few things that you must do here. It needs you, or it's asking you to demonstrate your ability to use borders. It's asking you to demonstrate your ability to not truncate cells. A truncated cell is one where you've cut off the end of the text. So you can see I've changed the width of the cells to make sure everything's clear and easy to read. The next thing I'm going to do a few little bits. Borders are very important. They want to know that you can do these. So I'm going to put in some borders around everything. So you can see we've got borders in there. We can clearly see which column is which and which row is which. I've also made the headings of the columns and the headings of the rows bold, so they're slightly they stand out from the body of the text. You wouldn't necessarily have to do this for everything, but you just want something so you know it's a header, it's a title. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to add some shading to it. Now they do like seeing this, but bear in mind it depends on what you do. You want to make the contrast so it's not too dark in the background. So you want to pick very pale colours as background colours, and you want to keep the actual numbers, the figures, as dark black colours. That way they still stand out against the background. I've used alternate rows here so you can easily follow each line. This is something you see on a lot of spreadsheets that are used because it makes it easy to keep track of things. It's not strictly speaking necessary for the test. I've not seen it in the mark scheme say you have to do it this way. If it asks you to fill in the background, then do it. But generally this is just something to make it look a little bit more professional and just make it a little easier to read. Now this task, 4 marks, and it's actually going to be very, very easy. It's asked us to calculate the total number of products sold. So I've auto-summed the first row. You can see the flashing line is around what I want it to be around. Click on the cell, right corner, drag it down. I'm going to fill without formatting so it doesn't upset my nice coloured lines there. Or another way of doing it, if you select all the bottom row, auto-sum, it's automatically summed every single one of the rows for you. So we can check that to see it's going around the right area, and it is for each row. So that's now correct. So you've just made 4 marks simply by making 2 selections essentially and pressing 1 button. This is where it gets a little bit more complicated. This is the if statement. So it's asking us to give the staff a bonus if they sell 100 products or more. So the first way I'm going to do this is to simply put in equals if open brackets B27 greater than or equal to 100 comma true bonus comma, so not true, no bonus. And what this is saying is that if B27 is greater than or equal to 100, then they'll get a bonus. If it isn't, get no bonus. Or display the text bonus, display the text no bonus. Another way of doing this, if you don't like using the equals sign when you're doing greater than or equal to, if you do an if statement backwards, so we're going to do equals if, and this time we're going to do cell above, but rather than doing greater than, we're going to do less than. So if you put less than 100, then that would be the no bonus. And anything that isn't less than 100, in other words 100 and more, would be the bonus. So we've kind of done it backwards. We've made the true the false and the false the true, but we've also reversed the operation. And that's the same as saying greater than or equal to. So we get exactly the same result. If you don't like just typing a formula in, if you go to the Formulas tab and you go to the Logical section, select the if statement from the drop down options, you can type the condition in the logical test. So here we've put D27 greater than or equal to 100. and then we just type bonus and no bonus, and we don't need to worry about speech marks when we're using this. Okay, it'll automatically work out that it's text that we want in there. And clicking OK, and this is producing exactly the same formula as the first cell. Bear in mind, all these so far are going to produce the same result. It's just they're written back to front, but they're still giving us exactly the same result, and I'll show you that in a second. So this cell, we're using the drop down box again, but this is how we're doing it backwards. So we're going to say less than, and then we're going to make the true value the false value and the false value the true value. So it becomes, if it's not less than 100, then we're going to get the bonus. If it is less than 100, there's no bonus. And for the last one, I'll just drag it across. So to show that these are the same formula and they're all doing the same thing, I'm just going to quickly overtype these cells. So if I put 100, remember if it's 100 or more, they should get a bonus. If it's less than 100, they shouldn't get a bonus. So you can see at 100, all those formulas are producing the answer bonus. At less than 100, they're all producing the result no bonus. So they're all exactly the same formula, they're just different ways of doing it. Okay, I'll just quickly put in the auto sum again, and there you go. I'm just going to copy this one across so the formulas are consistent, so it doesn't show those little common errors and things. Okay, let's say any of those formulas entirely accurate, works perfectly for that. But do be careful about saying whether it says 100 products or more is greater than or equal to. Okay, not just greater than. One thing we are going to have to do is the spreadsheet's going to have to, when you see it in the formula view, it shouldn't be truncated. We shouldn't have cut it off like this. So if we expand the columns where we have formulas, okay, that's going to ensure by double clicking there that none of them are cut off. We can see the formulas clearly. So when the examiner goes into it and he clicks the show formulas button, he will see the formulas clearly, and you can see when we go back it's adjusting things to the correct size again. We've already put a candidate number, center number on the footer, or in the footer, so everything's fine in that respect. So now I'm going to save it. Remember, I'm saving this in the same file that the finished Word document is, so I should have two files in there now. Obviously I couldn't see it because I was saving that as an Excel document, and it is important to remember that when you save things you make sure you are saving it as the correct type of document. If you've done a lot of work in Word or Excel and you started with a text file, then if you just click Save As, the default is it will try and save it as a text file again. So make sure the bit underneath the name of the file is selected to the appropriate file type, which typically will be the program that you're working in. So if you're working in Excel, an Excel document workbook. If you're working in Word, a Word document. Okay. Next, what we're doing is we're producing a chart. All I've done is I've selected the names of, or the types of the job roles of the different staff at the shop, and I've then pressed and held Control after I've let go of the mouse button, and I've dragged and selected their sales. I've then gone into chart type, so Insert, Select Chart, 3D bar chart or column chart, and it's automatically produced this chart for me, and that's the correct chart. I just need to put in the title there because that's not currently correct. It will ask you to put it in a separate sheet. You can just move it to another worksheet, but I prefer it in a separate chart sheet. Either way, it needs to be on a separate sheet. It will ask for that. We can see the chart's absolutely fine. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to put the footer into it, or the header and footer. Actually, what I'll just show you this. If you did struggle to produce a chart, if you didn't know exactly what to select, if you select everything, and then you insert a chart, you're obviously going to get a bit of a mess, but don't worry too much about it. If you right click on the background of the chart and go into select data, if you remove the legend entries, okay, you can start from scratch. So by adding it, what I now need is I need to put in the series. So the series is going to be the numbers that we're looking at. So the numbers are the totals at the bottom. So by selecting these, it's not easy to see because the chart's in the way, but we can see that's the same shape as we were looking at earlier now. So they're the numbers, but you can see the titles are wrong. We've just got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So by editing the axis labels, we can now go back up to the job roles, select all of those, Click OK, and it's changed that. So this chart is now basically exactly the same as the chart that we produced by using the control function. It's just a different way of doing it. So if you're not comfortable pressing holding control, you can select the whole chart and then just edit in the data you want. Delete out the legend entry, put in a new one, and edit it exactly as you want it, and you'll get exactly the same result. Bear in mind you actually only need to do one chart, you don't need both of them. That was just to demonstrate how to produce it if you were struggling and you didn't know what to do. What I will need to do is I need to put, like I say, a footer. Because these charts are both on separate pages, I need to put a footer into both of them. Like I say, every sheet you have should have its own footer. You'll notice on these chart pages the footer is edited slightly differently to how it is in the Excel pages, but it's the same thing. So I've done my name, candidate number, centre number. So I've gone to insert, header and footer, custom footer, and then put in the information. So you can see on this printout here, I've got my name, candidate number and centre number on the bottom of this sheet. If we go to all these sheets, the entire workbook, if I flick through the different sheets, you can see that my footer is going to appear on the bottom of all of them. So if I save this now, it's got everything I want, close it down, and that's task 2 completed. So bear in mind we're on about 2/5 of the way through the test, a little more than 2/5, close to a half. And we're on task 3. In task 3 it's asking us to produce a presentation. Often task 3 will be a Word document, it might be a leaflet. If it is a leaflet or something, you can use Publisher. I prefer using Word for them. In the most recent test marking schemes I've seen, you get the same marks whether you use Publisher or Word, so there's no difference as long as you do produce the document well in those programs, which is the whole purpose of IT, to get the finished result really. So let's say the mark schemes are quite good in that respect. It doesn't matter which program you use as long as the finished result is the correct result. And if you're going to be producing something like a leaflet or anything that you might print off, then really Publisher, Word, those sorts of programs are the programs I want you to be using. If you're producing something like this on screen, a presentation, obviously PowerPoint or some similar presentation software is what you should be using. Now, this is jammed up, so I'm just going to kill that for a second and reopen the data files. This is the advantage of having saved it onto my desktop, the files are still there. So, as part of the presentation, what I need to do is I need the title image, or the logo, sorry, and I also need 2 other images and the image from the Word document that we found for washing hair. Okay. This is also the text that we're meant to use, that's in the data files as well, Salon Text L2. And we're going to need to put in the price of the organic shampoo that we found, the reason for buying the product that we found earlier. Okay, if I put the images in first, it's probably going to be easiest. What I tend to do with these activities, whether it's a presentation, whether it's a leaflet, doesn't matter whether you're working in Word, working in Publisher, working in PowerPoint, I get everything that I need to have in the document and I put it into the document first. So for example, it had to be 4 slides, I've put 4 slides in. We need that logo, I've put in the logo. We need 2 other images, I've copied and pasted the 2 other images. It then says the image that you found in section A, task 1B. So I'm finished with the images from the folder. Okay. And now I'm going to take the image that we did originally. So if we go back to our original files, so at this stage if we have not saved things properly, it's going to start really causing us problems. But I've gone straight in, there's the image, copy that, and paste it into the PowerPoint document. Remember, you can't go back on the internet, so if you hadn't saved that properly, and you're already more than 15 minutes in, like we are, you won't be able to go back and get that image off the internet. Okay? So you can actually lose marks for mistakes you've made earlier, which isn't usual in functional skills. Generally, if in a maths question, for example, if you make a mistake early on, but you do then apply the correct method to it, you still get the marks at the end. In the ICT, if in that first section you've made a mistake, and you need that information for a later section, you can lose the marks. So when you are on the internet, make sure you do all of task 1 and get everything that you need and do it properly. And then make sure you've saved it and make sure it is safe. A good way is to close it down and open it up again. That might mean that if you haven't saved it, you have to redo it, but at least you were doing it while you're still allowed on the internet. Okay, it's asked us to add some original text, so I'm just going to put a little line in here, nothing too much, okay? They're not expecting you to write the document from scratch, okay? They just want a little bit of text so that you understand what you're meant to be doing. Okay, so that's my title slide. What I'm going to do is I'm also going to put this logo into the corner of all the sheets. Now, this sounds easy, but the problem is getting it to line up exactly. In PowerPoint, it's not actually that hard to do if you really know what you're doing. You just go into the position and adjust it so it's in the exact same place on each page. But if we're dragging and dropping, which tends to be what most of us do, if we're honest, then you'll notice as I go from slide to slide, it's in a slightly different place, which is maybe a bit OCD to try and get it just right, but at the same time, if you're clicking through slides on a single screen and people are watching it, they're going to notice that transition, they're going to notice that change, and it is going to seem a little unprofessional, a little sloppily done. So what we can do is we can go to the master slides. Now the master slides are basically the defaults, so every slide will copy their properties from these slides. But going onto one of the title slides, one of the master slides, and pasting the logo into these, then I can put it where I want it. So I'm looking at where the footer's going here, because I don't want to cover up the footer, because remember we're going to have to put a name, candidate number and centre number in there. Okay. I can close that master view, and you can see we've now got kind of a double image on each of them, because one of those is the one that I pasted in a second ago, and one of them is one that's come from the master slide. Now, because I use the master slide, not the master title slide, it's only added it to the subsequent slides, not the first slide, which is probably for the best because we've got the logo anyway on the first slide. We don't need it again. What I'm next going to do is I'm going to start putting in text. So what I'm going to do is there's not that much text. I'm going to put one section of text into each of the slides. So the first slide is just the title slide, nothing really on it. And then you can see we've got kind of 3 paragraphs here, and I'll put 1 paragraph on each slide. We're also using 3 other images, so I'll put 1 image on each slide. I try and pick the image that suits the text the most, so salon services. Okay. Probably the best image for this is the gentleman doing the services. I also need to send the text box behind the image so I can move the image. And I've cut this out of here. I'll have that on the second slide. And then this can go on the last slide. So we don't want too much white space. That's a comment on this task, whether it's a leaflet, a presentation, whatever it is. Quite often you'll see on the mark schemes that they don't want to see a lot of white space, space that's being unused. That doesn't mean you want to crowd it, it doesn't mean there has to be loads of stuff all over the place, okay? It still needs to be neat, it still needs to be presentable. The words on the screen, whoever's watching it, still needs to be able to read them, so there still needs to be decent contrast. All they're saying is they don't want it to look blank, they don't want it to look empty. Now you can see here as well, it's asking us to insert the other text that it was asking for. Now it was actually asking for this in the question paper, but it's showing us in the text that we've pasted in that that's where it should go. So we can go to the Word document, get our answers, and just paste them into those parts. Sometimes, in fact, I think the more recent the paper is, so it's quite likely you will get a paragraph with brackets telling you where to put the text. In the slightly older papers, it doesn't always tell you exactly where the text could go, you're just meant to work out where it should go. But in more recent papers it has been a case of. insert this here, so you know exactly what you're putting and where you're putting it. Just make sure it still reads properly. Read the sentence. Is it still a sentence that makes sense? If it isn't, you might need to just edit the text a little bit. Okay, but if it is, just leave it as it is. You've already done, remember when we did that subheading for the first slide, we've kind of put our own text in already. It's not a lot, but they're not asking for a lot. A lot of this is your ability to create the presentation, not your ability for creative writing. Okay, like I said, the text you've created is more to understand or to demonstrate that you understand that you know what you're doing and what this is about. Okay, I'm just going to try and get everything to line up as I like it. I can be a little obsessive about getting these just right, so it is important to get the layout right. It is important to make it clear and easy to read. Okay, but there are degrees to what you can do, so it doesn't have to be perfect. It does have to be good. So you can see I've tabbed out the times. The times are all in a line. That's something that they would expect to see. What else I'm going to do is I'm going to put a background onto this, a design, a theme. Okay, and the reason for that is so that, again, the white space is less obvious. It doesn't mean it's not still there. You still need to be careful and make sure things are spaced out and you're making use of the space. But by putting a bit of colour in there, it does make it a little less obvious. And if I was doing a Word document or a published document or something, I'd do things like put a little border around it, because it just takes off the edge of that space, makes it less obvious, and it makes the thing more presentable. So it's not just a case of trying to beat the exam, it is also a case of it does actually make it look better. It doesn't matter too much about the themes that you pick. Like I said, try and keep contrast in there so writing can be read. Okay, think about the purpose that it's being used for. Don't put too much colour in things, okay, because a lot of colour can distract from the actual purpose of the presentation in this case. Also, imagine if you design a leaflet, it would make it very expensive if you're using lots of colour. So you want to be careful. So I'll be honest, I think the hair stop logo on the master slide is a little out of place. It makes the thing look a little bit messy where it's going over the green, but it's not awful. Okay, and this is the sort of thing they're looking for. Okay, they just want to prove that you can produce a presentation. Now here's another bit we have to remember: enter your name, candidate number and centre number in the footer. And when we did the master slide, we made sure that hair stop logo wasn't going to go over the footer. So here again, we've gone to insert, header and footer. I've clicked on the footer tab and I'm just typing in my name, candidate number and centre number. Because it's not done it in boxes this time, I've just put about 4 spaces between each part, just so that it's clear that they're separate bits, but at the same time so that they're all included on it. Okay, and you can see now as I click through the slides, there's the footer that's been included. It's not on the first slide, but it is on the document, so don't worry too much. It's on there, it can be identified as yours. Now, this time they've been very specific about saving it with a meaningful file name. Okay, this is because the next part of the exam, it's almost always the same. They'll ask you to email whatever you've produced. In this case, it's a presentation. I say it may be a Word document, maybe a leaflet, maybe a letter, whatever it is. You're going to email it in a minute, so you need to make sure that the name is appropriate and it makes it easily recognizable. So I've saved it as the hairstop presentation, and I've saved it in the same folder that I've saved everything else. So you can see in that folder now, I've got my presentation, my Excel document, and the original Word document for my evidence from the first task. Okay. Task 4, email your presentation. You must not use the internet for this task. Now this is very important. When we're using the internet, when we're emailing this, we are not using a webmail client, because a webmail client, by necessity, has to use the internet. Okay, so we're just going to use an email client. Okay, this is something that's stored on your computer that connects to your emails. Now, although it connects to your emails, it's not connecting to well, it is using the internet to kind of connect the messages, but nevertheless, this is the program they're on about. They want you to see you using any email client. We're using Outlook here, okay? We're using the Outlook email client as well, the program Outlook. So you go through Start menu, go into Microsoft or Programs, Microsoft Office, okay, and it's Outlook that we're looking for, or Outlook Express. You can also just open the Start menu and just start typing Outlook, and it'll give you the various programs that are installed. We have had problems practicing this because I know on the college computers, when you log in with your student email account, you can't use the Outlook client. But when you get into your test, you will be logged on as a different account, and you will be able to use the Outlook client. So what we're going to do is, it's only about 4 marks for this question, but 1 mark is for the email address or addresses. You may well be asked not only to send the email to someone, you may be asked to copy someone in. If you get either of the email addresses incorrect, you will lose the marks. You have to get all the email addresses correct to get that 1 mark. Okay, that is just 1 mark for that, but you do need to get all the addresses correct to get that 1 mark. Another mark is for attaching the presentation correctly. Okay, so you're going to get 1 mark for that. Another mark is for the subject line being appropriate, so 1 mark for that. And then the final mark is for the actual whole content of the email, so it doesn't need to be long. All we're looking for is a brief hello, whatever they've asked you to say. It's normally going to be something like, please find whatever I've attached, would you like to give me some feedback on it? That's commonly going to be what they're going to ask you to do. So that's exactly what I'm going to do, and then I'm going to sign off the email, kind regards, my name. Okay, you'd obviously use your name. That's slightly obvious, but yeah. So that's all they're looking for. Very brief, hello, sentence maybe 2, kind regards, my name, attachment on it, correct subject line, correct email addresses, and then take a screenshot of it. Do not send it. I'm assuming most of these email addresses that they use are either email addresses they own or email addresses that are not being used. So they are safe to send the emails to. I still wouldn't encourage it, and it's not part of the test sending the email. So once we've written our message in, once we've finished the email, we're just going to use the print screen button, which is next to F12 again, much like we did for our internet search, and then we're going to paste that result into a Word document. Just make sure you can see everything, make sure they can see the email addresses, make sure they can see the subject line, make sure they can see the attachment, and make sure they can see all of your message. Screenshot it. You don't need to save the message because we're not actually going to send it. And then here we are, brand new blank Word document. You could put into the evidence documents you've already got. However, I think they should put space in those documents to put this, to be honest, and they don't. All it says is evidence. So I'm going to create a new file for it, and I'm going to name that file Task 4 so they know exactly what it is, and I'm going to put my name, header and footer. Now I've cropped this much like I cropped the other image earlier. Again, that's because the message isn't very big. By cropping it, I can make it much bigger on the page. Okay, it's much clearer. There's no way anybody could claim that they can't see what that is or can't see what's sent. So we've got a nice clear message there. Everyone's happy. That's it. Remember, name, candidate number, center number in the footer. This is a new document. You are going to need to put that in there. The files should all go together. Everyone should be happy. You should be able to identify who you are and which is your work, as long as you put your name in something. But just in case things do get separated, things do get lost, by putting everything in the footer, you can be sure that you've done everything possible to make sure that file is associated with you and you get the marks for it. So I'm saving this in the same file that I saved everything else in. I've just called it Task 4 Email. And like I say, it's only 4 marks for that task. It's not a big task, but it is a relatively easy 4 marks. Okay. Remember, you're looking at around generally 35 marks out of 50 to pass. So 4 marks gets us well on the way to that. The final part, Task 5, generally 4 marks again. Here we've got 2 questions, 1 mark for each. It's only 1 mark. They're only looking for 1 reason. Yeah. So it says, give 1 reason why David is concerned about viruses. I'm going to put a few in here, okay? But there are, well, I mean, there are hundreds of reasons why you might be concerned about viruses, but just put one in, put a reasonable one in. Yeah, don't try to be too obscure with it. Generally, the questions at the end here will be about things like viruses. They may also be things about storage. They could be about anything. They tend to focus on security of your computer. Okay, that could be from viruses, other malware, other users. Okay, but it tends to be about security, or it tends to be about storage. But to be honest, I think it could be just about anything. And then we give one way to minimize the risk. Again, just think about anything that might either save you if that thing did occur, or that might prevent that thing occurring in the first place. So I'm looking at minimizing the risk. I'm going to look at things like backup. By backing up my files, if something does happen as a result of a virus, at least I still have the information saved somewhere. Yeah? Or an up-to-date virus checker. It's very important that it's up-to-date because viruses are constantly going out of date. Viruses are constantly evolving, which means the virus checkers are constantly going out of date. So an up-to-date virus checker or antivirus software, which will then prevent the virus in the first place, which means you won't have to have the backed up data. But both those answers would be kind of suitable answers for this sort of question. Generally, mark schemes are very, when you mention antivirus software, very particular about you saying it's up to date. All software should really be up to date, ideally, unless you really, really know what you're doing, in which case you probably won't be doing an ICT Functional Skills Level 2 test. Then you should, certainly, I'm not competent enough to not have my software up to date. I wouldn't know what I was doing. But I know people who work in certain industries that are able to look after their own software. For most of us, keeping stuff up to date is the best way to prevent viruses. Another good way is to make sure you put a basic password on your default user. So if you've got a PC at home and you can log onto it without entering a password, that is not entirely secure. Yeah? Even if the password's a relatively stupid password, just somewhat casual, even if you're the only person using the computer, make sure there's something that you have to type in, just to prevent anything too nasty from happening. Okay, it is a good idea to have a password on. So you can see we've got a number of reasons now why we've done the number of reasons why he might be concerned, and a number of things that he could do to minimize the risks. Remember, we've already put our name at the top of this document. It doesn't ask us to put it in the footer, so we're just going to save this once we put these in and then close it down again. Okay, so that's part 1 of task 2, which is only 2 marks. This is the second part, which is the other 2 marks. So again, task 5 is only 4 marks altogether. That's task 2, didn't I? Task 5 is only 4 marks altogether. Task 1 was answering those 2 questions, so you only need 1-line answers for those. Part B, showing that you know how to manage your files. Okay, so we need to show that we stored these in an appropriate file. Okay, now although it says Dan Stewart shows your files there, I'd rather show something a little more structured than that to demonstrate that I have stored things properly. So by going to the C drive, going to users, going to my name, in your case it would probably be DC number. If you look for the one with the lock next to it, that will generally be the active user, because you might not be using your own username when you do the exam. So I can see there's the folder on the left hand side. On the right hand side, that's what's inside it, and I can even see where that folder is inside. Okay, and the bar at the top gives me a bit more of a breakdown of that. but you can see files in a folder. Okay. So again, we're going to screen print that, and we're going to paste that into yet another Word document. This is going to be a blank Word document. Paste it in. I'm going to crop the image again. In retrospect, it might have been better to make the box I was using slightly wider so we could see the full file directory in that top bar. But as long as I can see the files in an appropriately named folder, yeah, and the files are appropriately named, that's what they're looking for, just to demonstrate you can manage your files. Okay. Now we're going to need to put our header and footer into this, a footer. So in the footer we're going to put our name, candidate number, centre number again. Let's say, remember, you're giving your candidate number and your centre number when you go into the exam. Candidate number is assigned back to you by the examining body, as in the centre number is assigned to the college. And once we put those in there, we just need to save this again with the appropriate name in that same folder where everything else is. So I'm going to say this is task 5. If I can spell. Okay, I'm going to say task 5B because obviously we already did task 5A in the responses document. And that is the paper finished. We have now completed all the parts. Remember, you get 2 hours for this, so you don't have to rush through it. There's plenty of time if you get stuck on anything. Okay, just have a bit of a play. Take that on Excel, you can go into different files. What I'm doing at the end now is I'm gone into the folder where all my saved documents are. I'm just opening each and every one up to make sure it's exactly what I'm expecting to find. Okay, nothing worse than doing all the work and then having the file that hasn't saved properly, or having saved it in the wrong place. Okay, I can see that everything's in each of the files, in each of the folders. Yeah, just making sure the formulas are as I'm expecting. If everything's fine, close it down. That way I know my work is ready. If you couldn't find your work, if something wasn't where you expected it to be, or you opened it up and it wasn't what you wanted, and you know you had saved it somewhere, go into the program that the file's in. So for example, let's say it was a Word document. When Word's open, if you click on File in the top left hand side, there'll be a section that says Recent Documents. If you click on that, it'll give you all the documents that you most recently saved. So if you had saved the information, you could recover it. Yeah, you've just obviously saved it in the wrong place. And what you could then do is save it in the right place and delete the other file. Make sure you delete the right file though. I wouldn't empty the recycle bin until you'd finished. And that's basically the exam finished. So good luck, and I'll see you for the next video.